Terry starts step up the middle of the field, 40. Big hole, 50. He's gone, 45. At the 30. Left sideline, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Jaden Terry. The tank for the Lancers give read option keeper a whole bunch of space. At the 40, got the 35, 30. Up the middle of the field, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Bryce Underwood. And welcome to Game Night. Nate Dreyer, Chandler Tim with you here. Taking it at the 14-yard line with being offset by Tyson Man. Shimmies over the 30. Burst of speed at the 40. Right sideline, 50. Able to get away from the tackle. Walking the tightrope at the 30. 25-20. All alone. 10-5. Touchdown, Grandville. Snap to Underwood from the gun. Fake handoff on the RPO. Thrown left side. Caught Yarbrough. Sidesteps the defender at the 5. Walks into the end zone. Touchdown, Belleville. The Tigers put it away. 34-17. They're going to go back-to-back. On fake handoff, keeper left side over the 45-yard line, upside the numbers of the 40, 35-30, left sideline 20, 15, 10, 5, touchdown, 7 touchdowns for Mason McKenzie, and Caledonia has just about served this one up on ice. All right, we are back. Nate Dreyer, Chandler Timmer. This is the Tailgate Report. Man, I tell you what, we have had a couple games that are certainly worth talking about, not just with the Grandville Bulldogs and not just what we normally cover, but plenty more in general beyond that as well. Why is my mom calling? Hello.
Hi. What time are you doing your, huh?
Oh, she's through the headset. Hello. Hi. You're linked in the headset. Right in the middle of a segment right now. You're on air.
You're on air. Caller, you're on air. Ready.
We're back. Nate Chandler, Tailgate Report here on the MGN YouTube page. Boy, we've got a lot to talk about. We've missed a little bit, of course. Again, apologies. No broadcast last week and no Tailgate Report. We were this close to still trying to find a way. It was tight on my schedule because we had so much, of course, to talk about with the Tailgate Report last week coming off the incredible Grandville-Hudsonville game. Chandler hasn't seen Grandville play in like a month and a half now, it seems like.
It feels like it.
It does. But we've made it. We are back, and we've got a lot to get to. Carson Kopko, senior captain running back, will be our guest this week. He's actually going to be calling in probably in the middle of one of these segments that you are watching at some point in time during the day. So we'll be hearing from him. That's great because, of course, it's Grandville, Caledonia this week. We'll be there. We'll be outside. We've now confirmed. I don't know if anyone's looked at the weather. I should bring up the weather. It's not good, so get ready for this. Our broadcast is worth watching solely because it's going to be comedy, and we're already scrambling on how we're going to protect the gear. Also, the other broadcast that you may have an option to watch, you have to pay for, and it might not be MHSAA legal, but it just still happens. So, now that I've already opened my mouth one too many times, Chandler, welcome back to Michigan Game Night. It's been a while.
It has been a while. Thank you. Yeah.
So, yes, I guess without further ado, we probably should just get things rolling. Again, buy merch. He's wearing the hat that you can buy. The shirt is old. You can't buy that. You can't buy either of this, but you can buy the hat. I feel like at this point in time, everyone that wants to buy merch has already bought the merch that they want anyway, so I probably have to work on rolling some new stuff out. We do have actually new beanies and winter and cold weather gear, so make sure you check that out as we get into the colder weather. And
rain.
Unfortunately, it won't be ready in time for Friday. But, yes, so make sure you all check that out. Subscribe, like the video, follow us at MI Game Night across all social media. And now, here is Carson Kopko, the perfect way to get things going.
I'm Randy Hansen, president of Centennial Securities. I've heard it said that professional coaches measure success in rings, college coaches measure success in championships, and high school coaches measure it in titles. But youth coaches measure success in smiles. At Centennial Securities, we're like the youth coach. Our success is measured by the smiles on the faces of our satisfied clients. If you're a Centennial Securities customer, you know what I mean. If you're not, isn't it about time?
Member SIPC and FINRA.
And welcome back, everyone, to Game Night and our Captain's Corner segment this week, joined by Grandville senior running back and captain Carson Kopko, coming off a run of big wins here for the Bulldogs, including one on the road over West Ottawa last time out. First off, Carson, thanks for your time tonight. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing well. And again, we thank you for coming on, and this certainly is a big week for you to come on with the opponent coming up at the end of the week, and we'll get to all of that in just a second. But first off, let's take a look back at the last couple weeks, but especially the West Ottawa game. You know, we've seen the offense has been really rolling. I mean, you guys on a whole, as a unit, we've seen things going. They've been offense back and forth led wins. Just kind of give me some of your thoughts on the last couple weeks here in OK Red play, getting these kind of high flying back and forth wins.
Yeah, well, it's kind of the same story as last year where we're getting into shootouts where it's score, and then our defense is really needing to step up and come with a big stop. And luckily, the last few weeks we've gotten a couple big stops. But with the next 2 weeks coming up, our defense is going to have to be on point. And, I mean, so is our offense, of course. But I'm hoping that, like, especially this week at practice and next week at practice, and especially on Friday, our defense can really dial in, step up, and get some stops.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's take a little bit of a look at kind of your role in this offense and your role in this team in a couple different ways. First off, you know, your role as a fullback and as the middle running back out of the T that you play, it's a position that I don't think people really always fully understand the importance, because it may not always be the flashiest position in terms of the amount of, you know, touches and so forth that you get, but in terms of a role as a blocker, which we see you laying big blocks all the time, having to run that trap play, you know, having to grind out tough yards. Tell me a little bit of what your mindset is and what playing that fullback, center, running back position in the T offense is.
Yeah, so my role this year has been a lot different than it was last year. So last year was more of a big play, running the ball more, and I block it here and there, but especially this year more, I've been mostly just blocking, and I think I've improved a lot on that, and it's not something that I'm upset about. As long as we're getting in the end zone, I'm fine with it, no matter how it happens. So
yeah, you know, we note it during broadcasts a couple times. I mean, I feel like twice a game we'll see you getting outside and laying a big block for Easton or for Jaden or for one of those guys. And it's like, man, I mean, this entire big gain came from, you know, this guy out of the fullback position, which traditionally, like you said, has been kind of that big play, the trap play sort of position. And he's getting out there and he's lead blocking and he's making some things happen. And that turns right in kind of with the way you just, you know, said how easy going you've been with changing the role and willing to, you know, to adapt your game. Tell me about the role of being a senior and being a leader with a couple young running backs behind you. You know, a couple sophomores playing alongside you last week, the junior and Sadinsky as well. You know, tell me about kind of that leadership role and some of your perspective of being a senior playing with these younger backs alongside you as well.
Yeah, well, so last year we had actually Tyson was the older senior one, who kind of helped like be a leader within the group, so I've had to step up this year and kind of fill that role. But going into last week, I knew, well, Easton had ankle problems all week, and he was not going to play all the games, so I was expecting to be by, obviously, Jaden and Reed. But Reed going out early, and that put me by two sophomores, and I think Braylon, he stepped up and did a really good job at a spot that he hasn't really practiced much.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that rolls right into, I mean, this ability to replace guys. I mean, the offensive momentum right now for you guys has to just be so great. It really has to be a good feeling and a confident feeling settling into this kind of groove where, you know, your offense has really hardly been stopped since you've gotten into OK Red play.
Like, yeah, every game that we've had, our offense has just been rolling every drive over and over. There's been our Davison game wasn't too great. But that was more of we were doing really good in the first half, and then we just fell apart towards the end. So we know that no matter who we're playing, we're gonna be able to keep rolling, and we're gonna hope that no matter what we see, what the personnel, what they throw at us, we'll have something to adjust and something to throw back.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple questions kind of stepping away from the field, or at least primarily the field. First off, and this is somewhat a question that my esteemed colleague Chandler, who has liked to keep a longer haircut himself, would have endorsed. But the one thing we've noticed, and you seem to be one of the leaders of this, is there seems to be a little bit of a mullet movement, I'm going to call it, among the team this year. A lot of guys have gone with that look. Certainly we can see it in the picture of you I have on the graphic right here. Is that coordinated between you guys all with this look as a team? Was there a moment behind that, or are you the one that has to break it to me that I'm just getting old and I've fallen behind on the trends?
Well, it's not so much a trend or anything. It's more of if anybody on the team is like considering it, everybody else who already has one is like pushing it. So last year, I actually Reed Graverson, he was the one who got me to get a mullet. Like in the middle of the season, I got one.
Okay.
And then this year, I just kind of kept it going from last year.
No, yeah, I mean, like I said, we've noticed it. It seems like every week or less, especially coming into the year, there's like a ton more guys when I do my walk during the sideline that have the look. I'm like, is the trend to go back to 1985, or is this a team thing? So that was our question. And of course, like I said, Chandler would be one to endorse that because he's got the shortest hair he's probably ever had in like the last 5 years right now. But he would be he'd be a big endorser of that. Moving ahead, like I always ask guys, in terms of looking ahead next year, still early in your senior year, but next level, whether it's playing sports or in general, kind of what are some of your college thoughts, maybe major or different things you're interested in?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I will be playing sports in college as next year, but I have been texting with coaches, some coaches. I'm not 100% sure on that. It kind of just depends who it is and what they're offering. And, so I don't know if you know, but I'm a big math guy. I'm a math nerd.
Okay.
So anything, something STEM in college, engineering maybe. So if I'm playing football, it would probably be at a school that has at least a decent engineering department. But yeah. I'm more focused on education than sports.
No, that's good, and I mean obviously that's the best way to think of it, and that's a very nice way to just tell me in particular you're a lot smarter than I certainly was coming into. When I was looking at college, I was looking at where could I go. That had a decent broadcast program, but mostly like where can I not have to read and still get A's. That's how I looked at going to college, and that is what I kind of chose, and that's what wound up working out for me. So don't be like Nate, because then you'll wind up like Nate, which is what no one wants. All right, let's get back on track. This weekend is a big game. I probably don't need to tell you that. Caledonia. First, let's look at it on kind of the emotional side. And I know every week, everyone has their line from Coach Stiegel. We've heard it for the last 6 years that the next game is the biggest game. I've heard it from every kid I've ever interviewed. I've heard it from Coach Stiegel every week. But this game, in terms of a chance to make a statement and a chance to, beat Coach Pennington for the first time since he got there, avenge some tough losses, avenge some tough circumstances like you guys had in the playoffs last year. This has to be a game that it's just that much easier to get up for on Friday.
Yeah, I know we're all looking forward to it, all the coaches, all the players, because, I mean, we had 3 total losses last year, and this team gave us 2 of them. Mm-hmm. So we're really excited to get back out there and really, I mean, like you said, just show everybody like it's more of a statement. Yeah,
and it rolls right into, you look at it, and I know you obviously won't delve too far into it, but, in terms of either the X's and O's or the big matchups, what are some of the things kind of early in the week where we're doing this interview? This is a Cal team that's, loaded with a lot of talent, a quarterback coming back this year, and Betzer in terms of the other side of the ball you won't be going up against that can move it around, in a defense that, they bring back a lot of the defensive line pieces, some of their defensive backfield as well. It's a team that you're pretty, familiar with. What are some of the things you're looking at for a Cal team that has a lot of the same DNA that went to Ford Field last year?
Well, yeah, we played them twice last year, so we know kind of what they're scheming and what they're looking for. It's a very talented team coming back, especially their front line and their linebackers coming back. It's really big for us to make sure that we can see what we did well in those 2 games and try to maximize our play calling and our double teams and everything what we're looking for against them to try to set up something that can just be more successful than we have been that we were in the second game.
Yeah, no, for sure. I can't wait to see it. It's going to be a heck of a ball game. It's on the road. Could be some nasty weather too, which of course, the team running the tee, that certainly could wind up helping you guys. Chandler and I will be outside, so we also will be enduring the elements with you guys. So, good luck for sure to you guys. And Carson, thank you so much for your time and joining us here tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, Carson Kopko here on Captain's Corner. All right, welcome back to MGN. Nate Chandler. Thanks to Carson Kopko, of course, for coming on and joining us here. Now we get into, well, it's going to be an interesting segment because normally our recap segments, we actually know what we're talking about. This week we really don't because neither of us were at West Ottawa, of course. I was able to find the radio. Hopefully everyone else was able to find the radio broadcast through WHTC because I actually didn't know they were going to be there until when I found the broadcast from my hotel room in the second half. So hopefully everyone else is able to find that to listen along. And, of course, the brains of the operation, was not there against Hudsonville. Hence the broken scoreboard cam and the Nate Dreyer special running the graphics and the camera. So to answer whoever has to comment on YouTube, who's running the camera, it's me too. That's why it looks like this. And by the way, going forward, we're a little TBD on some of what our broadcast plans in terms of video and stuff might be, just because this is we've found the limit. Chandler, what has my famous line always been about what we're going to do in terms of video? What's my exact quote of what we're not going to do?
Well, you'd rather do high quality radio than low quality video.
Yeah, except I don't say low quality radio. What do I say? Something else normally?
Yeah, usually something else.
Okay.
I didn't know if we had the bleeper out for today.
I don't know if we do have the bleeper out or not, but normally I do say something else. We're not going to a certain kind of video instead of good radio. So, there you go. And this graphic was good, but besides that, we were close to video. So, okay. So let's get into it. West Ottawa, Hudsonville games. First off, and you know what, the best way to look at it is both games are very similar in a lot of ways, because the offense for Grandville, of course, rolling, and the defense would have flashes of success mixed with flashes of some struggle and some patterns that we saw in terms of some of the struggle in the games as well. So, I'll let you give kind of general thoughts because you weren't there for either game, but I'll let you kind of give your general thoughts from the 1,000-foot view, from watching replays, from kind of watching highlights, some of kind of what we saw in terms of how things are setting up for Grandville.
Yeah, I think, as you said, wasn't able to watch either games live, but have gone back and was able to watch your broadcast of the Hudsonville game, and then I watched some highlights of the West Ottawa game this previous week. And just looking at you're starting off looking at the scores, and of course, very similar, 44-37 over Hudsonville, 41-31 against West Ottawa. And so, the numbers that jump out to you right away is the offense continues to roll. They're putting up 40 points in every single game except for the loss at Davison. So you can't really say too much other than the offense has continued to be exactly what it needs to be and scoring a lot of points. The defense is kind of where some question marks have started to come in. You go against a Hudsonville offense that's missing their starting quarterback, that hasn't really been a juggernaut most of the season. It's been a defensive-led team for the most part, and you give up 31 points. And then against a West Ottawa team that's toward the bottom of the conference and has some playmakers, but for the most part hasn't been putting up big numbers there either. You give up 31 points, and well, of course, that's enough to win the game, and you pretty comfortably have it the whole way, but it was kind of a constant game of score, and immediately Hudsonville or West Ottawa was going down the field and kind of chasing you the whole way, keeping it close enough that the game's really never fully secured, but also never really in the balance either. It's kind of just a awkward position of taking the lead and then going back down the field. But yeah, it was, for the most part, a similar game in both aspects, but of course 2 wins and the Bulldogs will take that.
Yeah. This game has been 8-0 for about a minute and a half now, and I have not changed the score yet. Now, I know exactly the chaos that was going on. So the biggest problem that happened, I didn't think it'd be that difficult, is we have a score, obviously, so Chandler keeps complete score. I was at least just trying to keep track of the scoring plays so I could go back to that at the end of the game and stuff. And the chaos of trying to write that at the same time as needing to do the graphics while triggering the ad, it wound up being about too many things for what my simple brain was able to. Oh, there we go. We changed the score. What my simple brain, and then I missed the kickoff return. This is so good. And we kind of got it back. Regardless, though, it worked out pretty well. And the game, of course, was incredible, and it was a clutch game from Grandville. That's one of the most important things I think out of it is how solid of an effort it was in that regard out of the Bulldogs. So now kind of quickly again, the skill position players. Jaden Terry goes for 7. I'm still calling him Jaden. Everyone else is calling him Tank on every other broadcast I listen to. We are, normally the hometown guys are the ones that use the nickname exclusively. Right. We are calling him Jaden. His name will be Jaden on our broadcasts until he specifically tells us otherwise. Right. But he is Jaden Terry. That will be his name on MGN broadcast. I'll use Tank. I got a lot in here. If we want to get real fun on some of the touchdown calls, we've got a lot of,
got some prep.
Tank rolls over this, whatever.
Okay.
But we got some stuff stuck in there. We got some Gus Johnson type cheese ready to rock and roll.
There we go.
But 279 yard rushing against West Ottawa. Sadinsky, great against Hudsonville. Had 3 long range touchdowns. He was a little nicked up, I think, last week against West Ottawa to some extent. So the good news from that is the big name skill position players are all coming to the forefront. Braylon Haney filled in very well with a couple scores and good running with some of the nick-ups against West Ottawa. But, we're seeing not just Jaden coming to the forefront, but everyone offensively contributing pretty well and having those big, spotlight-type moments.
Yeah, getting contributions from the entire backfield. Of course, Jaden Terry's got the big touchdown numbers. He continues to find the end zone at a crazy rate, and in games where they've needed the scores down the stretch, he continues to cash in for the Bulldogs, and of course Sadinsky too. A lot of long runs to keep the Bulldogs in it and keep them ahead in both games, mostly in the Hudsonville game there. But you love to see the production there. Carson Kopko, we just heard from. He also has had some big plays in there. So, I mean, it's the same thing we've talked about all season long. The offense at very few points this season has been a concern, and I think the longer that goes, obviously, the better that is for the Bulldogs. And so when you've got your backfield kind of locked in, of course, we'll see, what the injury situation is moving forward. But assuming all things are good there, that you've got those 3 guys and plus some of the guys off the bench there that have been contributing and stepping in, you're feeling really good about where this backfield's at.
Yeah, and on kind of the other side of things, you don't want to say the bad per se, but the one thing that when you look at who's next needs to be worked on, the defense has certainly given up more points than we've seen Hudsonville and West Ottawa scored, and a lot of it kind of coming in the pass game and coming in ways that, we know that this young and a little bit undersized to some extent is part of it. Now they play very high IQ football out there, but they have to be kind of perfect right now, and they are just so young at linebacker and defensive back, and that's so key to remember. But that's been the one point to kind of look at in this regard is, especially I think West Ottawa had 2 or 3 kind of long slant touchdowns. Hudsonville moved the ball pretty effectively, some through the pass game with a sophomore quarterback. So, I think that's the one thing where it's like, there were some moments where they came up with big stops against Hudsonville. They did what they needed to do. But against Caledonia and against Rockford, whatever those little things that need to get cleaned up, that because I'm sure the defense would say, and you can see it, they are close on some things from being a lot more of a secure unit. That has to get cleaned up real quick because of these next 2 weeks if you want to win those games and win the OK Red, which they certainly obviously can do.
Yeah, I think still in a perfect position there. And the defense, as you said, has shown some signs that they can be a stronger unit than maybe what they've been putting on paper the last couple weeks. And you talk about some of that inexperience at the linebacker position and the secondary. They're going to be tested these next couple weeks and stopping the run and pass game, respectively, of Caledonia and Rockford. And so I think, of course, you go against some of the teams that, looking back, that are in the bottom of the OK Red, and you're kind of hoping you maybe put together a stronger defensive performance, that you lock them down a little bit more than maybe what you did. But I think all season long, this defense has kind of been a group that they're going to give up some yardage, whether, of course, that's something they're going to try to work on, but they've been able to make the big plays when they needed to. They've gotten the turnovers occasionally down in the red zone, been able to come up with some stops, and I think it's going to come down to that. I think they're going to have to continue to find plays like that. That's where the concern moving forward is Caledonia and Rockford don't turn the football over as much. They're a little bit more high prolific offenses than the teams you've faced, and so you wonder if you've been struggling against some of the lower teams, the less offensive firepower teams. What is Caledonia and Rockford going to mean? But I think the signs are there, and then of course the familiarity and with those couple teams that you can put together a game plan and try to come away with a couple stops to keep your offense in it.
Nope, that's well said, and that I think kind of wraps things up well from this perspective of these last two games again. We weren't at them. We won't go quite as in detail as what we normally may do. I think this is a good way now. Let's now transition straight into taking a look at a little bit of what our playoff picture is right now. All right, whoa, where did Chandler go? Well, he had a hard out. We went through the hard out, so we decided to leave this segment in the middle of the show to be done by me alone. And this is our bracketology, mapatology, playoff preview, whatever you may want to call it, segment. Of course, we go off of and we thank snoozetoyou.com. Snooze, of course, the Grandville guy who puts this together. And the best place to find, week by week looking at, all right, what are things looking at right now or looking like right now in the playoff picture. We'll start in Division 1 here in West Michigan. We start here with where things are at for Division 1, District 1. And this is, honestly, I think mostly where things are going to wind up. You obviously can potentially flip 2 and 3. Of course, if Grandville beats Rockford, there could be some movement there. Maybe East Kentwood falls out of the race, but likely with their schedule, I think this is close to what things are going to look like. So you likely are going to be seeing, very likely, that Grandville-Hudsonville rematch at Bulldog Stadium. The only thing is, maybe a Grandville loss to Rockford. Regardless, I think this is roughly what you're going to see, at least in terms of this mix of 4 teams. Who knows? We'll see where things go. This is who, as of right now, they'll be playing. You see how that sets up. Belleville has moved. Davison has moved. There's just a lot of movement going on the other side of the bracket right now. And we've seen that kind of week by week as teams move in and out. Snooze has kind of been forced to change some of the projections based on where all these teams are and trying to district them. So that's where things are right now in Division 1. If you're a Grandville or Rockford or Hudsonville, East Kentwood even fan, I think you have a kind of rough idea what your first couple rounds will look like in the OK Red District, as we've kind of called it, throughout the years. So, Division 2, you see things setting up right here. Of course, the Muskegon District, Muskegon and Mona Shores right now, both primed to likely play each other. And D2, so loaded, Caledonia moves into this district. That includes a very, very good Portage Northern team, along with Byron Center, Portage Central. And this is a real murderer's row in Division 2. I would actually expect us, Chandler and myself, based on what happens with Grandville, some of these matchups to probably be spending quite a bit of time in Division 2 between both this district and, of course, Caledonia's district, Byron Center. I think there's a good chance that's where, unless Grandville goes on a run, or, if we'll follow Grandville, but, especially Grandville Rockford, we won't have coverage of, and you never know what might happen. I think that's a place we might be. D3, a place we might be as well. You see, obviously, Forest Hills Central, East Grand Rapids, and interestingly, Lowell has moved ahead of EGR in playoff points. That certainly is something interesting, I think, to watch with how things set up right now. Zeeland schools, along with Coopersville, lining up, and you can have a little bit of a look at the rest. So that's kind of where, the main parts of our eyeballs, DeWitt's very good for a 3-2 team, are looking in Division 3. Division 4. Whitehall remains undefeated. You see where they can fit in, along with Freeland, interestingly, coming over here in D4, a good undefeated team. Of course, Lou Gamlin at Michigan Sports Radio has those games covered. Spring Lake, Allendale, Parafile. Look at this, all 5-1. What a murderer's row again. This is, as many of these districts wind up being, Spring Lake and Allendale, Forest Hills Central, Eastern, and South Christian all fit in there. Here's a look at some of the rest. Hamilton, again, as they always do, gets to go to a separate district away from the Grand Rapids dominant schools, and a little bit of a look at the rest as well. Division 5, quickly, and again, I think by the time we get into Week 8, Week 9 is when we can really start seriously taking a look at some of this stuff, and that's where I think we can learn the most of how exactly things will fit. But we're starting to get the picture right here. You see in D5, Belding drawing into a 2 seed as of right now, despite their 5-1 mark. They could be a dark horse. I mean, you look at this district. Gladwin, of course, I think was at Ford Field, on potentially even a state champion last year. So an interesting setting up region for them, but Belding could be in a position to go on a bit of a run. Of course, West Catholic and Catholic Central is going to be the one to watch. Oak Ridge, an interesting matchup right now for whoever winds up the two between Catholic Central and West Catholic. Likely will be Catholic Central settling even if they win out, because you're likely looking at West Catholic going unbeaten. So, of course, the West Catholic, Catholic Central district championship, what many of us, all of us, would have our eyes on. I certainly would believe. And then we get into some of the lower divisions where you don't see quite as many teams from in terms of the OK schools that we normally talk about, into Division 6. And some more of the up north and the upper peninsula teams fitting in here. Montague fitting in right now at 2-4, but fitting into a 3 seed. So that's interesting. Actually tied with the 4 seed right there. So that's kind of a look as you get into D6 and some of the teams going on there, and that's kind of where we'll end this part of our tour. But, of course, as always, thanks to Snooze for his great work. Everyone knows snooze2u.com, the place certainly to go for your playoff analysis and figuring out week by week how are things currently lining up, where are things going to be for my team. So for Grandville fans, you've had a look now and again. And just week by week, it's looking the same. We know what this district's going to look like. We know that there's going to be probably 2 rematches coming. Same can be said for the Rockford or Hudsonville or East Kentwood fans in that as well. So we know a little bit of how this is right now lining up, and some really interesting things. I just can't wait till we get to the playoffs, especially as we get on those deeper playoff runs. If Grandville doesn't go on a run, which certainly they have a chance to with that, the way that they've been rolling offensively and the defense looking to shore some things up, there's some interesting matchups, and there's a lot of teams from the west side of the state. I think D1, D2, D3, D4, and D5 all have teams from the OK conferences from the west side of the state that truly believe they have a chance, and I think could go. I think 4 teams from the OK conferences being in state championship games is not out of the question, maybe even 5 this year. Truly, I believe that to be the case, and I think this year, the best chance, honestly, even for a team from D1 to again make it. I said the best chance. There's the one last year. We were there last year, and I forgot. But, I think truly a chance, a D1 team. I believe D2 is almost a given one of those teams will make it out. So the same can be said for D3. And then once you get into D4, D5, you're getting into, and then into, even D6 less, D4, D5 is where you get into these real dominant private schools from West Michigan and West Catholic, Catholic Central, South Christian that have done so much dominance in state championship type runs. So, all right, we'll now snap our fingers and magically Chandler will reappear, and we're going to preview Grandville versus Caledonia. All right, Grandville, Caledonia. This is what everyone's here for in terms of, everyone's here for Carson Kopko. The second thing everyone's here for is the preview of this game. For Caledonia this year, the lone loss was to Rockford. They are dominating both sides of the ball. All the teams that they are expected to dominate, plus a good win at the Big House against Romeo to open the year. It's a different team from last year. A lot of new pieces and new places. Of course, a new quarterback. Throwing the ball maybe a little bit more than they have in the past, but it's still the bulk of that DNA with, 3 players on the offensive line, the running back and the H-back back. The bulk of the DNA from a state near championship team that went to Ford Field and almost beat the best team maybe in the country, in terms of public schools at least. It's back, and that's kind of where it starts in terms of looking at Caledonia.
Yeah, I think, the team that accomplished so much last season, of course, Mason McKenzie's graduated, so the new quarterback in there, but a lot of the skill positions, a lot of the line, the trenches are back, both sides of the football for the Scots. So I think, a lot of hype coming into the season. A lot was expected from them coming off a run to the championship game and bringing back a lot of pieces like that. And outside of that loss to Rockford, they've really lived up to it. They've won a lot of games, won the games they were supposed to outside of that. So I think definitely trying to make a statement they are against Grandville and the rest of the way as well as they look into forward to the playoff run. Yeah,
absolutely. And you look at some of the key players. Let's kind of do our breakdown of Caledonia first, then we'll dig into some of the specifics of this football game and some of what we're going to be looking at, but previewing Cal. I mean, first off, it starts with the MAC commits that are back. Brock Townsend's on his way to Central Michigan. He's got double-digit touchdowns on the year. Derek Pennington Jr. is going to Western Michigan. At the end of the day, we can talk about all the changes everywhere. Those 2 guys blocking and edge rushing and playing defensive back and playing running back slot receiver, they do a lot of the heavy lifting, and they're both back.
Yeah, it starts, with those two guys. When you've got an elite running back like that that's playing D1 football, going to be at the next level. He's got, of course, a tremendous runner, but they also get him involved a lot in the passing game, just getting him touches with the football, allow him to make some plays. Derek Pennington also, they'll throw him the football a little bit, but just the physical presence that he brings offensively as a lead blocker, a guy that they can run behind, a guy that plays defensive on the defensive end as well and can really lay some hits on that side of the football and kind of sets the tone for the defense.
Yeah, and you look at the pass game on the whole. Brody Betzer, the junior quarterback, there was some talk in the preseason. Would it be Betzer? Would it be Blake Heron playing more of kind of a running quarterback? Essentially, he'd be more of a Mason McKenzie type. Betzer's a really good pure passer that they've liked in that role for a couple years. To go along with it, all new wide receivers. Parker Little, Maddox Greenfield, who we've seen on the defensive side and seen some on the offensive side, and then a freshman, Lincoln Senti, are all part of this receiving unit, and they also are very good. Sure-handed guys with some breakaway speed. They run those 3 receiver sets. It's still the base of the main offense with the wingback off the line, and then the only difference is if it's a 4 receiver set, they bring Townsend into the slot. Otherwise, he'll stay at running back, and they run, kind of the read option base and then throw it off of that. But the main thing about this team, Chandler, the pass game is more of a focal point than it was even last year, which, of course, against Grandville, it did become a focal point at points.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what can make them dangerous going forward. I think, of course, you had just a tremendous runner of the football in Mason McKenzie. The one knock on him potentially was the down the field throwing the football, and they maybe have an upgrade in that situation where Betzer can throw the football down the field. They've been throwing the football a little bit more. Of course, isn't quite the athletic runner that McKenzie was.
Very few are.
Yeah, it was truly special what he was doing last year, but not a bad replacement by any means when you've got a guy like that stepped in and has led their offense.
Yeah, no, for sure. The defense, they're going to be led up front of that 3-4 base. Jackson Engelberg, who's back on the offensive line as well at right tackle, he's back in the middle of things. Derek Pennington Jr. as the edge rusher. Townsend, Greenfield lead the returning defensive backs. This is a team that, they've given up, 28 against Romeo and 40-plus against Rockford. But besides that, they have not allowed, I don't think they've allowed double digits in a game yet. So against bad or not as marginal offense, they have been absolutely shut down. Against good offense, they've been maybe a touch more leaky than last year's, maybe best defense in the state like it was at points. So that's the first thing to look at is it's like they've had to replace quite a bit. The linebacking core, kind of decimated in terms of their middle linebackers. There's a lot of new pieces trying to fit in. They still have some of the big names back, but that's where you look at Grandville and how Grandville has stormed everyone except for Davison so far offensively. This is one of the first interesting places to look. Has Caledonia taken a step back defensively, or, has what we've seen in the games where they've put up the great performances what they are?
Yeah, it's going to be the huge decisive point of the game. I think when you've got a Grandville offense that's been rolling, scoring 40-plus points and put up points in the previous years against Caledonia, that really hasn't been as big of a concern. So I think, that's a matchup where you'll see what Caledonia, just how strong their defense is. Of course, the shutout against Hudsonville last week allowed a lot of low numbers against some lower quality offensive teams in the past few weeks. But we'll see what they can come up with. And, of course, got the experience that we talked about, the guys that kind of know the T offense and are familiar with it. But kind of seeing that matchup in terms of what Caledonia's going to be able to do to try to slow down the Bulldogs' attack.
Yeah, I mean, we could go on forever, I think, previewing this one in a lot of different ways. But there's that side of the ball. There's the Grandville offense side of the ball. Then there's the Grandville defense side of the ball. And let's be kind of frank with it. Grandville's defense, where their struggles have been against the pass game. Really, the mid-range pass game in the last couple weeks, the crossing pattern game, and some of that sort of stuff. Sometimes if you have one good weakness or one solid weakness, that's a good thing because you can fix it, and where a team is expecting that weakness to be, maybe you can solidify it. But with a couple nick-ups defensively, we'll see how Grandville's able to line up in terms of some of those injuries officially. I think this is the matchup to watch. I think Grandville's offense, we've seen it even against Cal, they'll find a way to get their points. But it's going to be a game of managing that clock. Grandville may need 1 stop or 2 stops to make it happen. The question is, will they be able to get those stops? Will they be able to mess with this pass game? And then also, will they be able to mess with the read option run game?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be a tough task. It's this Bulldogs defense is really for the rest of the year. Of course, these next 2 weeks that's going to be the big question mark is can they make some plays when they need it? I think you're not asking for a shutout. You're not asking probably even under 30 points. You're not even asking that. You're just a stop or two at some point. Can you slow down these high-flying offenses? More Rockford on the high-flying, but Caledonia high-scoring offense. I think it's something that they're going to continue to fight with the rest of the season. I think they've got some playmakers. You've seen the turnovers that they've been able to create at certain times when they desperately need them. They're going to need a couple the next few weeks, and so I think the injuries is going to be a big factor. We'll see exactly how that's going to play out, but I think going forward, it's a unit that has had some struggles, but the potential is there to turn things around.
You just said it. Turnovers might be where this game's going to frankly be won and lost, because if Grandville, we've seen all these kind of red zone picks. They come up with a red zone pick or two in this game. It's a completely different ball game. If you're able to, it truly might be who gets 2 stops wins. It's similar to the Huntsville game. It might be who gets 2 stops. And I think Granville's offense is still so good on the whole that even against an offense that the level of Caledonia, they'll be able to stay in it and they can control the ball in doing it. The one thing we do know with that, we know Jaden Terry has some big games, and we know with, kind of some of, again, the nick-ups potentially at the running back position. Jaden had 280 yards and 4 touchdowns last week against West Ottawa on 35-ish, I think, touches. It's going to have to be that kind of game again, because it's going to have to be a very controlled yet quick and effective offensive attack from Grandville.
Yeah, I think so. I think, when you've got a guy like that you can really lean on, can be kind of your lead back out of the tee. Gets a tough yardage, has the big play potentially. Continue to lean on him. They maybe had to lean on him a little bit more than they were anticipating against West Ottawa and stuff. But the plus side of that is you've kind of got your offense set up for what it's going to be now going forward, as far as potentially having some injuries there, as well as needing some big plays and crunch situations where your offense has been rolling, but yet you're still kind of playing from behind or needing these drives to be successful and kind of that high pressure situations. And so you've seen the Bulldogs be able to move the football. Of course, the biggest test yet will be coming this week, but good signs from the offense and see what they're able to do against Caledonia.
630 MichiganSportsRadio.com/MGN. We are your free broadcast option, and we'll be out there in the elements as well at Caledonia. So I cannot wait to get to that one. Or the YouTube page also will have that stream going on, however you may choose to want to tune into our enhanced radio coverage that we are going to have. It's going to be a great game on Thursday night. I'll probably on our Instagram, like I've been doing, put out a little bit deeper look into kind of my spotting board and help prep for this game a little bit more as well. So if you want a little bit more insight, that'll be coming out then. Make sure you follow us on the MGN Instagram as well. If you haven't already, we've got some good content that we put out there. All right, let's step aside. I'll be right back for some rankings.
Can you identify your number one personal trait? The thing that you do better than most others? If not, this may be a good time to think this through. If you're really good at writing, then why use the phone? If you're great on the phone, why use email? If you have exceptional human relation skills, why sit back and let others lead? I'm Randy Hansen, president of Centennial Securities Company. Playing to our strengths is something we do very well at Centennial. And if you're already a customer, you know what I mean. If not, isn't it about time?
Member SIPC and FIN.
Hey everyone, Nate Dreyer from MGN, and MGN merch now available for purchase, and we have got a ton of options. Here's where you find the new MGN shop. Go to MichiganGameNight.com. Many of you have probably been there before. Click on the shop merch tab. Many of you have probably been to the MGN page on Michigan Sports Radio. Click on the Buy MGN merch tab. It'll take you here. We've partnered with Teespring, neat company that allows for us to have a lot of different shirt designs. They'll print them, they'll make them, they'll ship them out to you. So a neat way that allows us to have a lot of offerings. We've got a ton of really cool t-shirts, hats, snapback, dad hats, beanie hats, water bottles, more t-shirts, more sweatshirts, just a ton of options. Really, just a ton of options that you're going to be able to look through and find exactly what you may want. We've done what we can, like I said, with Teespring to try to stack this thing. We'll have plenty more options that we'll put up on social media, but make sure you check it out. All right, welcome back here to the Tailgate Report. All right, let's do some rankings, our weekly OK Red Power rankings, and our weekly OK Conference Power 6 that you do. Everyone knows the rules at this point in time in terms of what we've got going on for that. So we will get into that now. I suppose. And we've got a lot to get to that as well. And one of those things where we definitely should have done that show last week because things would have changed so much in a couple of these different conferences. Some wouldn't have changed, but there have been some radical changes based on what happened in this past week. And that's a good place to start. Again, thanks to everyone tuning in, YouTube, whatever. I'm always amazed. This is a side note before we actually get going, which I understand these digressions are why we get way behind on time all the time and why I have to do segments alone. I'm amazed. We do the broadcast. We've been doing the broadcast forever, and then we do this show, and I'm always amazed how many people I hear from about this show. When we're a weekend or a Friday night, I hear from 4 or 5 people a night that say we love the show and see that and whatever, and I find that shocking. Apologies to whoever the gentleman, I didn't catch your name, that commented on how he was amazed that my hair never moves during the broadcast.
Oh, really?
Yes. I have a hat on tonight, so unfortunately, well, here's my statement regarding the hair, because the thing is, I do some TV work, of whatever with different racing and whatever, and I'm just simply not good looking enough. I'd far rather have a buzz cut. That'd be way easier to have. I'm simply not good looking enough to be able to get away with being on TV without, TV ready hair. Okay. So that's whatever. And also, the thing is, you don't have to deal with it on this show as much. I have to sit here and stare at myself all show long. So, if I ever, adjust my hat or adjust my hair or whatever, it's because I'm just simply staring at myself on this screen all day long.
Yep.
So there's a couple notes just quickly about why we look as dumb as we do, as there's a train going by the studio that you probably can hear on this broadcast. And that's why this show is the best. So there you go. There are my several statements to make on everyone that we see in the Tailgate Report. The rankings. Okay, Red. We'll do first, Chandler.
Okay.
I'll let you go first with your bottom 3 in the red.
Okay. Sorry to disappoint the people out there. There has not been a lot of movement for me in this area in quite some time. So I believe it's been 2 weeks, and I believe I haven't made any changes. So I've got Jenison 8, West Ottawa 7, Grand Haven 6.
Okay. I have slightly changed things from you then. I still have Jenison at the bottom. I have jumped West Ottawa above Grand Haven. Not just because they have that win, but because now we have the common opponent, seeing them versus Grand Haven, seeing Grandville versus Grand Haven, seeing Grand Haven versus West Ottawa, and we have seen, I think, similar-ish performances, and I'd say maybe even more points scored, maybe a little bit stronger performance in some regards out of West Ottawa. So I have put them ahead at 6 over Grand Haven at 7, and again, those things will continue to shake themselves out. Grand Haven will have Jenison this week, and they'll have a chance to both kind of settle out and see who else gets a win, essentially, and we'll have one alone for sure at the bottom after this. The middle tier, let's do. I mean, it's going to just all be the same. This is the worst segment of the year for the most part. I've got East Kentwood 5, Hudsonville 4. We'll do the middle 2. Do you have the same on those two?
I've got the same,
Okay.
but I think Hudsonville with a head-to-head win over East Kentwood. I feel like,
Yep.
I mean, I always kind of like to do the tiers, of where the teams are at, and East Kentwood continues to be the team that's clearly ahead of the bottom 3, but also clearly not in the top 4. They're kind of in their 500 record, so obviously right in the middle of things, and so I've got them there. Hudsonville, a loss last week, a tough one to Caledonia, but I think still enough, of course, with the head-to-head win that they're going to stay over East Kentwood there.
Yep, absolutely. Top 3. Then, okay. So I'm gonna have Rockford. This is me making up rules.
Okay.
I'll have Rockford 1, and then I'm not picking a 2 or 3 because it's gonna be whoever wins this week.
Okay. So just not gonna pick one at all.
Yep.
All right.
I'm making up rules, and
Okay.
I don't want to say who I think is winning necessarily.
Gotcha. Okay. I've got Rockford 1 as well.
Because by saying this, you make a pick on the game, in my opinion, possibly. Or you
Okay.
can say that you're doing it based on resume. You can do whatever you want. And in that case, you could say, I think Davison's a better loss than Rockford. We'll get to comments on Davison loss quality and rankings later.
Okay. I don't want to get myself into too much trouble, so I'm just going to rank them, and you can read into it, whatever you want to read into it. I'm going to have Caledonia 2, Grandville 3. Of course, 5-1 record for both of those two. I think it's very close. I think I think I'll have a much better idea of that next week after we see this game play out. That's going to sort itself as to who's going to be number 2, but for right now, I'm going Cal 2, Grandville 3.
Yep, and whoever wins gets, and then we can begin to debate 1 versus 2 for a week, and then we will know 1 versus 2, and then it'll be over after that. And then week 9, they all go off and play whoever else they play in week 9, and we go from there. So that's the OK Red. Rockford, for good reason, will stay atop things in the OK Red. Let's go to the OK Power 6 as we delve into this a little bit. This is a good time for my digression of the week, which I like to make. I didn't think we'd have to do it again, folks. I didn't think it. And you know what? Again, I almost should. Again, there's poll. Everyone loves to do a top 10 poll. Some affiliated, some unaffiliated. I saw one that was an unaffiliated poll. Looked really good when I saw that one from the area. Some affiliated polls I didn't like as much. Again, we just from a minute ago heard from our boy Snooze with his great work with Mapatology. His is fine in terms of who I think has on there. There are some other of these top 10 polls where I think you're messing with me. Like, I don't think it's just Grandville. I think I'm being messed with. Because, listen, I think Mona Shores is really good for those that maybe have Mona Shores above Grandville. They have 2 losses that aren't to Davison. Davison, the best team in the state of Michigan, outside of maybe Belleville, and they're probably beating Belleville. So there's 1. 2, a Rockford graduate had North Muskegon. They're unbeaten, so I get it, and everyone has their own formula and whatever.
Yeah.
But come on. They're scoring 40 points per game in the OK Red. They're scoring 45 almost per game in the OK Red. Well north of 40 in the OK Red.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Hudsonville, who previously had given up 12 total points through 4 weeks, and they hung 44 on them.
Yep.
Their only loss is to... I'm losing... My voice is out of control.
Getting excited.
Their only loss was to Davison, which, again, the score was big, but, Davison is... it's going to be them or Belleville, or maybe Rockford.
Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
I just need this. And there's a couple more on there too. Okay, the OK White mix. They all have 1 loss now, and they all lost to each other. Davison's better than any of those teams with a 1-loss mix in the OK White.
Agreed.
I'm not saying Grandville has to be 1.
Yeah.
And I'm not the world's. I'm not even a Grandville grad. I'm not the biggest. I am the Grandville shill of the community at this point in time. But not one of you has them in the top 10.
There's rumors out there that you have burner accounts saying that fighting for Grandville online.
Those are not. It's not true. See, now you're getting me in trouble. That's actually not true. No, I don't need a burner account. I use our account.
That's true. That's just what our account is. Our account is the burner account.
I've started having to delete tweets because I've gone too far on at least one occasion just using our own account. Which again, Jaden Terry, 20 touchdowns through 6 weeks. I picked him for Player of the Year.
Yeah.
I knew what I'm doing.
That was a good pick.
So yeah, there's what we learned. Grandville should be in at least 1 top 10. Not saying all of them. Not saying the number 1. And 2, Nate doesn't have burner accounts because Nate just uses the Michigan Game Night account. Now you know who's tweeting as the burner Xing, whatever.
Yeah, whatever that is.
I got the logo updated. Isn't that great?
Yeah, that is great. Yeah, no, I've been looking forward to this segment all week because I get the polls sent to me usually individually with comments on them, and I knew that this was going to be good, and so I've been waiting for it, and that lived up to the hype.
Word for word, the comments are the exact same, right?
They are, pretty much,
Yeah,
yes.
pretty much?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. I just don't want to have to edit as much. That's why I didn't word for word say what I said. I don't want to have to edit as much because I'd have to edit some. Okay, Power 6, Rockford has our red vote each. OK Green, we're going to get a resolution this week.
We will.
I think we've been sitting at Zeeland West, probably have to sit at Zeeland West still just based on resume. If you have a change, please say so. But with Parker Holman, I think, still out, I can tell you who I think will win this game and who I think will be my pick next week, and it's going to be Muskegon. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But for now, Zeeland West, they get one more chance to prove us wrong. We both have kind of been doubting Zeeland West all years. They've kept winning. We've been very big on Muskegon, but we'll learn very shortly.
Yeah, I think this week we'll answer that one. Zeeland West still hasn't given up more than 13 points in a game. I have a strong suspicion that changes this week as well. I think a little different offensive animal in Muskegon, but Zeeland West is
stats.
High, functioning numbers there. Right. Lots of in-depth research, but no, they. I think Muskegon, a team that started off slow. Of course, we talked about not to totally lose hope in them, and I think this is going to be their week to prove that they came all the way back from that. And I think Zeeland West is a team that's played Muskegon closer than a lot of teams, pretty much every team in the area has in terms of that conference. So that should be a really good game, and we'll have a for sure answer to that one next week.
All right, so the aforementioned OK White, we have a circle of madness going on right here. So Forest Hills Central beats EGR 20-0. Byron Center, fresh off the FHC win, loses to Lowell in a game that they kind of came back, but they were down big, giving up a lot of points at one point in time. What say you? Where do you settle things out in the White right now? The three-way one-loss plus Lowell kind of sticking their nose in there after beating the former number one team, or what would have been last week if we had done this.
Yeah, I think if you had asked me last week when we had done this show, the obvious answer would have been Byron Center. Yep. I think now that they have lost to Lowell, Forest Hill Central beats an undefeated East Grand Rapids team, as you said. I'm all the way back to Forest Hill Central. Yep. I've got them back in the lead. Of course, they had the loss in there, but a very close loss to obviously a good Byron Center team. So not saying that's an outlier, but I'm also saying Byron Center's a good team. It was close. I'm going back to Forest Hill Central.
I'm going to join you in that, and I have stats too.
Okay, let's hear it.
That Byron Center game, the only time they allowed 15. That's the only time FHC has allowed double digits. And obviously shutting out an East Grand Rapids team that's put up some points. I mean, you think about they put up some points even against like South Christian and some other good teams that they've seen. So that's going to be my take on why I'll put FHC back on top. This is still a madhouse. And, Byron Center EGR is coming up next weekend. That's one of the games on our horizon because the Rockford Michigan Sports Radio team will have that game in terms of the Grandville game. So we are looking at a couple different things of what we might be doing between studio show, red zone type thing here. It will sound off in the comments below, as the YouTubers would say on week 8, either matchups we should be at, or maybe if a red zone style show and the madness of essentially doing this for 3 hours, what people would rather see. But that's one of the games we're looking at, both for week 8 and 9. We're kind of TBD. The Grandville Jenison game, being that there's a good student broadcast now at Grandville as well for home games, that if there's a game with big playoff positioning, Grandville Jenison may not be the game of the week to be at necessarily. So yeah, we'll see. That's all TBD. That's the OK White. OK Blue, it's been over. I think now first and second is kind of well solidified. I think Coopersville's moved pretty more solidly into second, but West Catholic has already run away with this thing and continuing to. I mean, you called it over after week 2 before they even played a conference game, and here we are.
Yeah, no, I feel pretty good about that one. I think the one test remaining. West Catholic is a 5-1 Allendale team coming up, I believe, in week 7. So that would be this week. Yes, that's this week. I don't know why I just put this week and I instead put week 7. But they've got an Allendale team this week. I expect them to win that one, but that's probably their final test game of the year. I expect them to win it. So yeah, I've got West Catholic. All
right, OK Gold. Again, it's been Catholic Central, South Christian. We're just waiting for that matchup, and they don't play for a couple weeks still at this point in time, and we'll decide it there. I've been sticking to Grand Rapids Catholic Central. I think they've been a little bit more impressive with some of the same wins that they've had. Have you moved off South Christian yet, or are we just going to be opposed until the end?
I think we're just going to be opposed until we see it.
That sounds about right.
I've got South Christian yet. I think we'll see Catholic Central is playing a Forest Hills Eastern team. That's been good. Yep. It was close with South Christian. That would maybe be a little preview, see a little head-to-head comparison there of those common opponents, but yeah,
not that it would change.
No, it's not going to change my mind either.
South Christian could probably lose, and you wouldn't change at this point in time.
Just got to see it through.
Yeah. OK Silver also over. Belding beat Sparta 38-19. So they have. The conference from a conference championship perspective is not wrapped up, but they've essentially wrapped things up now for our power rankings at least purposes already.
Yeah, they. The second and third team, Sparta and Comstock Park, they've had head wins over both of them already. So that one about as wrapped up as it can be.
Yep. So that one already is shown itself. Of course, fewer teams, the OK Silver, so they have some kind of weird non-conference games that will slip in late in the schedule. I think Belding is Jackson or someone that they have in there at some point down the stretch as well. All right. We've made it to the end of another show. And what a show it was. one of our worst or our best. Sometimes people say that our worst shows are our best shows. This one was marginal.
Depends what you're looking for.
Depends on what you're looking for. What are we doing Friday night? Well, we're sitting out in the rain. Hopefully. We'll see. They're working at Caledonia. Essentially, the way that Caledonia is set up, it's kind of tough for an extra broadcast team to be in there. Like I said, there is another broadcast that will be going on, school, whatever, sponsored, so to speak, but you have to pay for it. So we will never put a paywall on our stuff unless I really get sick of it, and then we will. But until then, no paywall. Of course, you can find it even on YouTube if you would like. And our stream also is completely kosher with the MHSAA. The other one technically is too. There's some funky rules. We pride ourselves at Michigan Sports Radio, Michigan Game Night, in that we have plenty of phone calls to figure out what's allowed, what's not, and how are we good for this, that, and whatever. So we are definitely good for what this stream is. So support your boys, support the Bulldogs, and watch the free broadcast. 6:30, michigansportsradio.com/MGN. Also on the MGN YouTube page. It'll be a great one. We are between mini easy ups and totes efforting how we're going to keep our stuff dry. If the broadcast goes out just in the middle of the stream, please don't comment where the stream go, because I'm having a really bad night because the computer's fried. So keep that in mind, everyone. It'll be a great game. It might be, I'll let you give your final thoughts here. Again, it might be first to 50 wins this thing.
Yeah, I think so. I expect it to be pretty high scoring. I think, of course, some names have changed from the matchups we saw a year ago, on both sides for either team. But I think I expect at least a similar story in terms of a game flow for both of these teams. I think, of course, Grandville is going to be in it. They dropped both of the games last year. I'm not necessarily making my pick there. I just think when you look at it, it's going to be high scoring, going to be lots of opportunities for both teams, and there should be a lot of highlights coming from it. So I expect a really good game. I think, as you look forward, this is, of course, the big one before Rockford. So, I mean, it's the biggest week for a couple weeks. It's the big game. Or for 1 week, it's the biggest game is what I'm trying to say. But, yeah, no, I mean, you got to win this one for Rockford to mean as much. So, it should be a good one. I
mean, some of us, for a fact, at the end of the Hudsonville game may have called Hudsonville Grandville's arch rival for some reason that I don't know why it came out of my mouth, but it worked, and it was the call. So we're sticking with it. They were the arch rival of that week for Grandville. Correct. Until the arch rivals of the next couple weeks come up as well. So we've got one of those rivals this weekend for sure. And what's a really burgeoning rivalry between these two teams as well. And Grandville looking to make a statement. Mm-hmm. And we'll be there if they are able to do so. 6:30 on Friday. We'll see everyone then. Thanks for tuning in to the Tailgate Report. He's Chandler. I'm Nate. Goodbye.